welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. I hope you've had a good week, a good weekend, and I hope you're, having nice plans for the week ahead or like the week that's already actually started. Um, been very busy. I hope you enjoyed the new schedule of, not the new, the traditional, going back to the traditional schedule of one episode per week because I I kind of like it, because it allows me to deal with a lot of things that have happened at the moment. Unfortunately, not comedy related. It's some personal stuff that I have to get through, and we'll hopefully be able to, get it all sorted not long from now, and then we'll figure out what's next. I'm sure something's gonna happen. Um, Besides of that, work. Oh yeah, actually, I do have a surprise for you. Well, a surprise in a couple of weeks. We might have two episodes. Haha. Well, yeah, but that's because of the again because of the week that's going to be there. I'm going to close. I'm going to talk closer to the date uh, about what's up. But what was I going to say in the time being? Yeah, well, I've been dealing through. Well, I've been going through a lot of things at the moment, and some more uncertain than others. And I'm trying to figure it out and get that sorted. But yeah, I've been seeing my therapist, and I've been seeing my psychiatrist a little more often than usual. And I guess, in one hand, that's a bit worrying. But in the end of the day, I'm sure he's enjoying speaking to me more often, and I'm trying to make the most of it myself. Um, well, today's conversation. It was a great one. I know Johnny probably ever since since around the time when I started doing stand up. However, we've never met in person. I know him through our like no our as if it's our personal, but through like Facebook comedy forums and or through friends of friends, and we share a very beloved friend who sadly passed away last year, Alex Marine, and it's actually was his birthday, and his sadly his 1 year, I guess they 1 year since he's passed away as well recently, and yeah, it's just been strange. Where am I going with this? Missing Alex a lot, and it's he was very good friends with Alex. I was good friends with Alex, and yeah, I don't think we actually talked about it as much during or if anything during the recording, but we've definitely talked about some of the challenges that I guess Johnny is facing on a day to day basis. It was just I still think about like how funny I guess things turn out. Where although me and Johnny talked about we had this interview or this conversation a couple of months ago. Um, Recently, we went through. Remembering Alex, when all these oh, this is like 1 year to date since this or this happened, and how do you feel about it? And well, it's strange, yeah, because I don't think with Alex, although he was ill for I think ever since I can ever since I met him, he was just such an he was just a lovely person. And I remember every single time every single s- conversation, or I want to say second, but that's not a realistic. But I want to say every other minute of our conversation it would be something that would make me laugh hysterically, and it wasn't even comedy related. It was just, he could find fun in everything. At least when we talked, and it was amazing. Because we yeah we just had a great time, and Alex is definitely missed by many, and it shows, the kind of person he was. And now to talk about the conversation with Johnny, it was a brilliant conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with him. He's a great comedian, and he's a lovely person. Johnny is such a nice, human being, and to you know have had the opportunity to spend this an hour with him, and talk about his experiences, and his some of the struggles, and everything else that's going through. And we touched loads of topics. We went from um, challenges to do with Johnny's disability, to his experience, growing up in a divorced family, which is kind of similar to to my story, because my parents also separated when I was fairly young. Although I believe they should have separated longer before they did, because it would have probably helped out more anyway. I'm going into a separate topic, but then yeah, we talked about that, and then we talked about you know I guess, like, the social anxiety, and I sometimes find it really strange that as a comedian, as a performer, we do, or at least, obviously in this situation, in my case, I always think about how strange it is, almost, and it kind of, I think it just proves the idea, or the belief that, or belief, I don't know. It just shows that two things can be true at the same time, where I am very, like, socially awkward. I get anxious in social conversation, then in the same time, or in the social situation, not conversation, sorry, but in the same time, uh I perform live stand up, and anyway, that's just something to think about. But look, I'll let you enjoy the conversation with Johnny, and yeah, well, I'll catch you before we wrap it up. Enjoy. Okay, perfect. Johnny, how's it going?
Yeah, it is a fairly productive day, Squire. So I hope you're winning too.
Yeah, it's been strange today, because I didn't expect the weather to be this nice, so it kind of
Yes,
threw me off quite a few times.
it has been very distracting because for the first time I've got actual furniture to sit outside and enjoy the weather. And work have spitefully insisted that I do stuff for the money they pay me. So yeah, I've just had to stare longingly at the outside like it's a treat for good IT behaviour.
Nice. Well, do you have any? How's the summer looking gigs wise?
It's a bit strange because I'm hopefully in the final stages of learning to drive my beloved adapted mobility car. So while I'm really optimistic about how my gig calendar will light up like a Christmas tree once I can drive to gigs, I'm aware at the minute that because I'm sort of limiting what I apply for until I know for definite I can get to stuff, at the minute it's looking like crushingly empty.
Interesting. Actually, I'm quite curious because I only know one of my family friends who used to actually smuggle cigarettes from Ukraine to Romania had their car converted because
Yeah,
they needed like support with the driving. What was
yes.
that like? Like how long did it
It's
take the whole process to get it done, and how does it? Did you have to like reapply for a drive? Like how does it work?
it's really really strange because the first bit in terms of actually being allowed access to say I will have that car as like the basis for everything because we live under a madly corrupt Belendish government. Um, Even though like everything in writing says that my condition on the disability front is a lifelong debilitating thing, they make me prove every 2.5 years that it's still a lifelong debilitating thing. So it took the best part of about 3 years to get a letter that said I'm still disabled enough that I can have the car. And then after that, it's taken about 6 months to get a working version of the Renault I ordered because everything is like an adaptation on the steering wheel. So the accelerator is like a ring within the
Oh.
steering wheel. The brake is just a lever between the steering wheel and the seat so that it's just sort of completely takes away any responsibility on the feet that don't work.
Oh.
So it's weirdly exciting because you'll be on a roundabout and think that you are steering appropriately, and then your thumb will catch the accelerator, and suddenly you've shot across 2 lanes and you look a bit disturbed. So that's a weird thing to try and learn to control. So yeah,
But then I'm really sorry to hear about the whole how hard it's been made for you to get to get basically the
yeah,
I don't know, to be allowed to get a car in the first place. But
yeah.
what is that like? How do you prove that you still have like what did
It's
the test?
it's really strange because I mean, genuinely, this sounds like a bit for a set, but honestly, this is how the current Conservative government thinks me and my people should have to play along with things. Despite the fact that they've got all the documentation on file about what my condition is, the symptoms of it, the extent of it, previous injuries, previous surgeries, medications, treatments, everything. Every 2-3 years, I think you get it's a 52-page form that you have to fill in with a recollection of what it is that you said 2 or 3 years ago on the same 52 pages. So you have to kind of remember what you put for that page about how capable you are of getting washed on your own. And the really
Oh.
weird thing is you've literally got to write to strangers what difficulty out of 10 it is getting a shower without assistance. It's just, you learn very quickly just to accept that dignity is just a thing that other people have now, and you have to sacrifice it if you want things like a free bus pass.
Jesus, that sounds all. I mean, I think, yeah, no, that sounds terrible. And
Yeah.
God, I was gonna ask you, so how long have you been doing comedy for?
Um. Oh, that's always one of them weird questions, isn't it? Because like I know July 2017 was the first time I wandered into a basement in Leeds, and I had no set. I'd sent like a 4-page Word document to the guy who at that point was my international tour manager and agent. And he got it out of the glove box of his car and he'd proper gone through it like an English teacher with like red pen and trying to work out where literally like the cadence of everything would be like, it's kind of funny-ish in black and white, but how are you going to say it so that it's funny? And I just remember saying, I don't know a word of it. I've not read it. I can't remember any of it. I think I'm just going to sit on a chair and just tell them stories about these legs that don't work. And it was just the strangest feeling of just suddenly arriving on this stage, looking out at this room, and I think genuinely it was a night where maybe there were 30 people in this little room, but because it was so small, it looked like the place that the Beatles did when they were breaking through as kids. It looked absolutely rammed. And I think the first line that I ever uttered as an aspiring act was something like, now that I'm sat up here, I can see that this is exactly how many people it takes to make my arse twitch and my dick tingle. And it was just like that really weird, like we all go through these phases, don't we, where you learn little bits of when to trust yourself, when to just let that instinctive little thing at the back of your head out of your face so that the strangers can hear it and they can react to it, and you can just let that be part of who you are and how you do it, and just see how that kicks things on. So that was just like a really nice feeling, like from the debut, that it was like, okay, I seem to have an inkling for how to do this.
So what made you want to do it in the first place? Like, were you always around comedy, or was it always your like art of choice? Or
no, I think genuinely, like honestly, mate, right from being like a kid, from like toddler level, I don't think I've ever really comfortably fit in anywhere. I feel terrified of every conversation or situation or anything. So all I've ever known how to do to cope with stuff is, at least if I make them laugh, I can get out of this alive.
wow.
So because that was the only way that I ever talked to people, just in punchlines, like even from primary school, it was like, if you do one thing in life, you lazy, lazy, lazy human, let it be stand up. And then when people were telling me to still do that, when I'd reached that point of cripple where I couldn't like stand up physically, let alone creatively, and they were like, well, no, sit down and do it then, you idiot, and just tell them why you can't stand up to do it. And it was like, oh, can you do that? Well, if you can, I'll give it a bash. And yeah, it just kind of set off from there.
Were you do you have anyone else in the family who's been either like I don't know, in arts, or had like expressed basically their creativity?
No, it's one of these really strange things, because I think there's every now and again I have like really, really early on in doing this, there was like a website that promotes events in Yorkshire, and they reviewed me just doing what I do. And I think what really threw us out is when people were reading it, all they wanted to say is, but literally all you've done for the entire time that you've been on this planet is try and hide from any version of any kind of spotlight that might try and aim itself at you. And now from nowhere, you're sitting on stages where the spotlight is and doing this. It's like the most out of character thing for who you are, but also the most natural thing, because this is what you've done all along. You've just done it in bus stations or kebab shops at 3 a.m, or just anywhere where there's people and it's like, shit, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. I know, just be funny about that bush over there, and boom, the strangers laughed.
You know, when you were saying this thing about how it felt like so, or like for people who were like, I guess, reading, people who knew you when they read the first review, you're like, oh, this sounds
Yeah.
like so out of character. It's like such a different version of Jonny from the person that we know. What was
Yeah.
it like for you? Like, because you know, like, did you ever feel like, oh, is this really, like, is this me? Is this a version of me? Am I being, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
is this the real me, I guess? How did
I think
you take that?
it's one of those really strange, like, contradictions, mate, where in terms of, oh, look, he's being funny, like I say, that genuinely from the point where I learned how talking worked, it is all I've ever done, because it's the only way that I know how to talk. That to people seem like natural, that, well, he is dead funny, so obviously he's going to do something where he can be funny. But they were just so shocked that of all the methods of showing people that you're funny, the fact that it was just me on my own on a stage talking, it wasn't me writing a thing for someone, or it wasn't me being part of half a dozen people doing a different thing. It was this guy who spent his entire life trying to hide from anyone that might want to look at or talk to him, is now putting himself on a stage to talk to however many people are in the room that stage is in. And it's just, yeah.
Have you changed much?
I think weirdly, yeah, because I think when you kind of get to that point where it starts to feel like home. Because I think there was one time where, you know, that lovely phase you get to where you go from doing just like the open mic stuff to being you're getting a tenor expenses to be a middle on a night where the opener and headliner are getting paid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just remember there was one of these nights where the headliner pulled us to one side after the gig and he's like, right, I'm sat at the back watching you. You've been announced and you've just walked at your pace. You've made no attempt to get to the mic as quick as you can because you're only moving as you. You've got to the mic and you've still said nothing in it. You've sat down, you've still said nothing. You've dropped the crutches, you've still said nothing. You've got the mic out of the stand and still said nothing. You've broken every rule that's ever been written about how you perform stand-up. And then you put the mic stand to one side and you say ta-da to that room full and the roof comes off. You've just worked out you're going to be you. You don't care what the rules are in general of doing this, because you aren't going to do this like the majority. You're just going to turn up and be you. And a lot of that does not fit anywhere in the textbook of how you present yourself and perform in comedy. But even though you are so different to what you should be, it just flies. And I have to just sit there and think, well, technically, absolutely, fuck all of what he's done should have worked, but everything he's done were amazing. And it's just them weird little moments that when folks that don't have a day job to keep the lights on, they just pay the bills from making people laugh. When they want to take that time to say, you're different, but it works, carry on being you, it's like, yeah, I'll take that.
That sounds amazing.
it was so surreal because it's like I learned pretty quickly that there is genuinely no comedy done at like a ground entry level. All comedy is done at the top of 30 steps or at the bottom of 44, or even if it's only 2 or 3 steps either way, you'll get to a stage and it's something that you need like an MBQ in climbing to get on and off of. And it's one of those things that I've really loved to embrace about how, I mean, it might sound really weird or like pretentious, but it's like I get to turn that to my advantage. That if that stage and the shape of it is like, I'm here to kill you, daft lad, and I get to turn that into like a unique opening minute for that gig at that venue. And it's just all these times that I get to think of how I turn the setup of a building that just has no regard for me and my broken people kind. How do I turn that into something that before I even get into my set, the room loves us because I've just done a thing about the stairs up to the venue or the set up to the stage or a mix of both. And it's just like, boom. I can only hold the mic in one hand because the crowd is in the palm of the other one. It's
That's a good one. That's a
it's just it's
beautiful way
those
to see it.
proper, like all the things that might have scared the soul out of us early on. Like I don't know how to get on that stage without physically crawling onto it. Now I will just literally do that. I'll crawl on, but I will turn that into a gag that opens the set and a bit that I can call back to either during it or at the end, or just literally learning how to use the venue's desire to kill me as like an angle that me and the room can laugh at. And it's just such a nice little feeling when you get that connection with them and they can just sort of see that this stuff's for them. Because obviously a lot of it's bendable and I can take it to the next place with some mad suicidal staircase. But ultimately, for that gig that night, this lad has brought us material about us, about the night we're at, and we love him for that. And it's just those little like chef's kiss moments of, yeah, I'll take that.
But then when you, I don't know, do you ever get people who were, say, in the crowd to be like, oh my God, like, was this planned? Was this, like, how much of it is, did you work out this entrance for, I don't know, a long time or whatever? Do you ever get those moments?
Genuinely, mate, one of my favourite tales in all the time I've spent doing this was someone who thought I was genuinely like a Dustin Hoffman level method actor.
Oh God.
And they were just like, so at what point do you stop being this and like just start walking then? Because I saw you do it across the car park to come in because obviously you want to be in the character space while you're at the venue. But now that you've done your set, when do you stop? And I'm like, I don't get what you're on about. And they're like, well, surely walking like that, you won't leave the house. And I'm like, but I do. That's how I got here. And they're like, no.
My God.
It can't be genuinely that you walk that bad and still choose to come and do stuff. This has to be a setup. What is it? And I was just like, this is so weird because I know we're both talking English, but there's clearly some massive language barrier because you aren't understanding anything I'm saying. I've not acted since I played the giant in the Jack and the Beanstalk when I was 7. This walk is just a genuine symptom of cripple. So it's just those weird moments where you just get things like that from nowhere, and it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this madness, this strange, weird
I think like
obsession with just trying to pretend it can't be real. Just like, okay, you weirdo.
well, because I think about I was thinking about how I think sometimes you or you as in like the other person, like people in general, they can't comprehend, that
Yeah,
things that for like, walking like this again, like I said, like up 3 steps, you'd think,
yeah,
yeah, that's it, it's not easy, but it's a given. And then you see that someone who doesn't see it that way,
yeah,
and then you see them talking about it, like addressing it as well.
yeah.
And
I think it's there's times where genuinely, mate, honestly, I will be moved, even if people don't necessarily word it in the best way, because they're already like 12 drinks in on the night that I've met them. But just where they'll try and open up to you and say that because they've had, and they'll be honest, it's like nothing on the scale of what I'm trying to get around with. But for the issues they've had and experienced and the difficulties they've maybe had mentally in dealing with what's happening physically, to see someone be able to, as they called it, teach them how to look for the funny side in the tragedy, it just sort of gave them a view of life that maybe they'd not had before. And because they've sort of seen that approach to things from me, it's just opened their eyes to how you can try and look at things. And it's that really weird, like it's a nice moment, but because I don't expect it, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm literally telling stories about things that have happened at doctor's appointments. It feels strange that just being honest about how weird my life is can make someone else's happier to live.
but then how did it like feel for you, I guess, because you were saying about like in 2017 you started your first gig by addressing the way you like how hard, like how what it took for you to go down the
Yeah,
stairs in this place to do
yeah,
comedy. But then obviously you lived those experiences that you then talk about. But
yeah,
then what was your way to I don't know to because it sounds like you're very, like, again, you are wonderfully like accepting, of
yeah,
what's happening, and you're like, you know what, it's happening anyway, might as
yeah,
well, you try to see the positives out of it, or try to make it turn it into a funny bit. But
yeah.
then what's it like to actually, again, go through those changes and kind of like see yourself in those positions?
I think that the strange thing was, like, whereas now, because I'm like crutch reliant, it's obvious that my bad walking is like an actual condition. But when the symptoms first kicked in, people on the street would genuinely just assume that if I was walking past them on a Thursday tea time, it was after I'd been in a Weatherspoon since last Tuesday.
Oh God.
And they just genuinely, you could tell from the judgmental glare, they were like putting their arms around their kids so that this dickhead didn't fall on them or attack them, or. And there'd be part of me that was like, don't let it upset you, because they don't know better. They're just making an impulsive, instinctive parent decision to protect their most precious thing. So you try and tell yourself not to be angry at it. But then there'll be days where literally all you're trying to do is get from where you've been working to where your train home is. And you need like both hands to count how many people have looked at you like you are worse than scum because of what they assume is the like utter piss can state that you're in. And there's times where it proper chips at you and chips at you and chips at you. And then when you kind of realize that, well, perhaps one of the ways to address this is if I actually talk about what's happening, if I actually tell some of the stories about how I've evolved into this mess of a thing, then maybe there's just sort of some therapeutic value to that. And I think, to be honest, a lot of it has been that because I've just turned a lot of the stuff that were physical pain and like the emotional trauma of going from being like a perfectly able, capable, non-disabled human to one that is riddled with symptoms. It's just sort of that strangeness of, because you know what it's been like in the past to have like freedom of movement and just the ability to do stuff when you wanted to. And now you've just got to assess everything diligently for like hours before you do it to make sure you actually can. Yeah, it's weird. So I just thought, right, if I sit in rooms and tell strangers funny stories about it, let's see what that does.
Wow. And you were what was it like then? Obviously, like again, 20. What was it like? I guess during pandemic wise, for you comedically, sorry, not comedic,
Yeah,
comedically, because obviously it sounds like it sounds wonderful, and it's like you're doing incredibly well
yeah,
to again to turn, I guess, like your pains and like
yeah,
your suffering into comedy, and
yeah,
then that's to an extent taken away from you because everything gets shut
yeah,
down, and then I imagine on top of that having to perhaps see your actual like physical
yeah.
I guess physical capabilities getting
Yeah.
reduced as well.
I think
Yeah.
genuinely one of the weirdest hands up strange learning curves of all this was during the pandemic. I did one of the Comedy Store King Gong things online, and it really kind of weirdly brought home the fact that if you see me walk as me towards the chair to then tell the stories, what I'm saying makes sense because you've seen what I'm talking about. But if you just see me in a Zoom window, sat at a laptop in a living room, what's he talking about? He's just telling us tales about what it's like when you don't walk well, but he's just sat on a chair. I don't get how this works. And so, like, bang, I'm out of it in like 20 odd seconds, and it was like, oh, I get it now. I get that if I'm talking about something that people can't see, it's not funny because they've no idea what these tales are about. And then it was just like trying to find where that happy medium is. It's like, well, okay, let's go away and actually write some gags that are just funny. It don't matter if I'm walking around or not. If I say these words, they are just entertaining anyway. And it was just like that really weird eye opener for like how to approach stuff for where we're going to be and what we're going to do.
When you're I guess either family or friends, if they see your sets, do they ever hear you say something that they didn't expect from you before? Like, are
Um,
you very different from the way you? I don't know the how, I guess, how honest or like how much you'd like share about your personal life off stage.
yeah, I think one of the really strange things was like the first ever actual written set. I think half of it was about being a child of divorce because my parents just chose to be absolute bell ends about everything when they split, and they just, even to this day, a decade later, they just keep doing psychological trauma on all of us. And so, because the second half of like the first proper set was all about my dad, just literally tale after tale after tale that no son should be hearing from his dad about what his mum would and wouldn't do on birthdays and promotions and all the rest of it. And it was just so mad because, like, say, going back to that review when everyone's then talking about, oh, have you got any footage of the set? And so when they're then watching me talk about my dad literally in a moving car on the M62, tell me a 20-minute story about my mum's lack of willingness to deliver oral.
Oh, God.
It was this really weird thing of everyone completely understanding it, and everyone, whether they were like friends, family, people who only met us on the circuit, was just like, it's so funny. It's such a mint way to get it laughed at, because you can kind of, for me at least, again, whether it's like something strange in day-to-day life that most of us have been through, or like the disability special stuff, if I can just find a way of sharing a mad thing that I've gone through that you never expected, so, and do it in a way that people are like, yeah, that's what I'm after. Just someone who sees it in that way that they can explain their life, their situation, but in a way that makes perfect sense to us. And they were all just so, this is you. This is how, every time I've seen you, this is how you process stuff. This is how you deal with madness, is to turn it into a thing we can laugh at. It's just so weird that you can get a room full of strangers to laugh to the point of clapping about a tale that your dad wants to tell you about his dick. It's just so weird.
I mean, this is actually, you know what? I don't think I've ever told. I'm sure I've not done it through my set, but I don't think I've mentioned
Yeah.
it before in the podcast. I've actually, because I come also from a divorced family,
Yeah.
and I've also I had the I think my point was at a certain age when I realized that my dad was like fooling around with loads of like women, that it just made things for me very uncomfortable. Because I think I was some point we'd like drive in the car, and then he would take a phone call from his like lovers, and you'd kind of know, now you knew what he's talking about,
Yeah.
you know, and like what those like sexual references mean.
Yeah.
And this is, oh my God, this is the first time I've actually thought about those, because I remember sometimes like driving with him in the car. I mean, obviously him driving, but being in the car and almost almost judging whether it's a good time for me to just jump off the car.
Yeah. It's so mental, because there will be times where, like, at the height of like realizing that these legs didn't want to do anything, I used to go swimming quite a lot as like physio to it. And the problem was, it would be like a 20-minute drive that my dad would have to take me on to get to this pool. And I'm thinking, right, it is 6:30 in the AM on a Tuesday morning in February. There cannot be anything he's got prepared to psychologically traumatize me this early in the day.
God.
And before I've even got my seatbelt clicked in, he'll talk about how he went to his new girlfriend's over the weekend, and breakfast on Sunday morning was rather awkward because with these new builds, those walls aren't too thick, you know. So I think, given the glares that I got from her daughter, they must have heard what we were up to. And I'm just like, why?
Why are you telling me this?
Why are you Just exactly like you could have rung me and told me that. But no, that doesn't serve your weird evil purpose because I could hang up on you. No, 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 no. You're going to save this traumatizing, mind-mashing story. But when I'm in a locked car and can't get away from you, because like a lot of those people, when they've realized that they've literally burned a hole in your mind with something they've told you, like I say, it was probably a 20-minute journey to that swimming pool. But you know, like the Dead Parrot sketch, where it's the same thing being said, but they just bled the thesaurus dry to tell the same tale X amount of ways. He's done this exact same thing with how his stepdaughter can't look at him the same now that she's heard things. And he just reinvented that tale 20 odd times from picking me up to dropping me there. And it's like, I understand now why I do comedy, because turning mind mashing shit like this into material that strangers will laugh at, this is what keeps me sane. This is what stops me collapsing under the weight of all this madness.
I think, you know what, I get it, yeah, because I sometimes see it in the sense of like, it's happened anyway. Might as well make something funny out of it, or might as well make something that I feel like is productive in a way. And I also
oh, go on.
Oh no, you go.
No, I was just going to say it's that strangeness of, at the moment, this bit in quotes is on a sheet of A4 on my bedroom floor, but there was a drive to a gig with a mate of mine where I got a phone call from an uncle, and I thought, right, genuinely, this is one of two things. Either I've been broken into or my dad is dead. That are the only reasons this phone call could be happening. And I was relieved when it was a break-in rather than a family death. But, right, and this is the reason that it's going to become a bit at some stage. The two little smack rats that had broken into my house were so high on the gear that they were looking to get more of from robbing me that once they got in, they couldn't understand how to get back out.
Oh, God.
So they just spent an hour walking round the inside of my house. They made such a loud, mad job of getting in that 4 or 5 different people reported them to the police. The police turned up, knocked on the door, and they opened the curtains with like my PS4 under one of their arms to see who was knocking. And it's just like, it's this beautiful little thing of, I know once I find the way to sort of shape that story and be like, the only good thing to getting broken into is when you come to speak about this to the insurance people, the telly was 3 inches wider. The PS4 was a 5. The 6 games you had are the 15 games you had. All that business. And then when you realise you've got all the actual arsake of the fact that you've been burgled and you can't claim jack shit because the police had to ring you for the key safe code so that they could let the dickheads out that had smashed everything up. Yeah. Because they'd like smashed like that top window that you get and opened that frame up to climb through. But for some reason, they were so high on this stuff, they couldn't work out how to go back through the open window they'd come in through. So when my uncle called me, I had to give him the code to the key safe so they could unlock the door so that the burglars could get back out again. And so because it weren't like they got away and they were found an hour later 200 yards up the road, they literally had to be rescued from the house they broke into because they couldn't work. how to get back out of it. And it's just, I really love, and at times like this, hate the rhythm of stand up. Because when you've created like a 10 or a 15 or a 20 that's got lots of stories and tales that just like beautifully dovetail together, and they give you that rhythm that however long the set is, you've got a set that delivers the job you've been booked to do that night. And you know, you've got this like really funny 2, 3, 4 minute bit about a thing. And if you tell it, people will laugh, and they will laugh lots. But you don't know where you can put that in any version of a set you've currently got and not like knacker the rhythm of how it flows. And I just get like proper playfully angry at it, but I'm like, it's really funny. And I
Well,
want to tell it people, but I can't tell it in this set because it'll just not fit and it'll sound weird. And yeah,
I feel like, yeah, sometimes you're in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, it all makes sense. You know, it's like I know the order, everything is there,
yeah,
and then you're like, how do you then fit it in?
yes,
And oh god, yeah, it's such a challenge, you know, at times. And but this thing with the burglars, it's so bizarre. And I think actually, because I think I might have seen the post on your like socials, you know, when
yeah,
you were talking about it, and I didn't know as much of the details, and now I'm
yeah.
just like, yeah, this is wild, you know. I think I was even thinking at some point you might get in trouble for locking them in.
Yeah, it was just such a, because it was when I got chatting to my like uncle after the event, and he was like the landlord of his local that he drinks in, not like worryingly often, but often enough that they've got his mobile number. They'd been informed of what was happening because I'm such a nailed on recluse that like rarely replies to anyone. It don't matter what you invite me to, whether it's a birthday, a christening, a wedding, a funeral. I will not appear at 98% of these things. Because as I say, it's this weirdness of my head genuinely just doesn't believe that it belongs with anyone anywhere. So I think I'm better in those kind of events by not turning up to anything. So genuinely, no one knew how to get hold of me to let me know that I'd been burgled. So they literally had to ring the pub so they could ring my uncle so he could get in
God.
touch with me to know what were happening. And it was like, Jesus. I know I'm not the most social, but the fact they've literally had to go that chain of events to let me know that two feral little dickheads are doing what they're doing. It was just such a weird, like, eye opener for how strange life's become.
But you know, I do, sorry, I do see the thing about. I also feel like my social batteries, like stand up, doesn't count towards how my social energy works, because I
Yeah,
feel like to some respects I can do a gig. I'm so happy, and I would love I because I love comedy, you know, and I feel like it's again, you have to do it. But then I'm the same to on the respect of, you know, then if I get, I don't know, most of the social things I'm invited to, I end up
yeah,
not going because I'm just like, I'm tired. I'd rather
yeah.
just be in my own house watching
I
the telly or doing whatever else.
absolutely that, buddy. Because I think that the weird thing is, and I'll be honest, the following statement, there's no in between to it. It will either be the most beautifully logical outlook on life, or just the most, okay, have you spoken to a counsellor about this? But it's like, I think the reason that I fall more and more in love with stand up is, yes, it's interaction, but it's interaction with rules. and times. I don't have to worry about whether I've got to be at this event for 40 minutes or 3 hours. I don't have to worry about who I'm supposed to sit next to or talk to or any of the... Because if I'm at a stand-up thing, I know technically I have a commitment to be there for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that once I've met that commitment, I can say, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, but I'm going for drive-through franchise food now. And I just have that comfort of knowing it's predefined before I get there. Who I'm going to be there with, how long I'm going to be there, and the venue. I can use beautiful modern technology to work out how far away it is from franchises that I don't have in my immediate area, so I can tick stuff off the wish list while I'm in that place. And it's just, I feel calmer in that situation because I know there's a structure to it. I don't have to guess who I'm with or what I'm doing or how long I have to be there for. It's all in the email confirming the plan. And so I can just breathe easy and just be like, yeah, do you know what? I'm there. I'm going to be a charismatic little prince for the amount of time I need to be at that place. But at the earliest possible moment I can justify no longer being at that place, I'm off to talk to somebody at a drive-through. And yeah, like I said, I know it's a silly thing because the fact that genuinely, mate, and on art, I can be more comfortable sat on a town hall stage telling 200 people about what it's like to go through an unexpected prostate exam. I'm more comfortable doing that than opening a birthday card in front of a relative that's bought it me.
Which I think it makes sense because again, you have a spotlight on you. Or no, it makes sense because you don't say the other something else doesn't make sense. But I see, I see the logic behind it because I always think about. I think a couple of weeks ago, actually a month ago, I had some people like started singing "Happy Birthday" to me, and I felt embarrassed.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with comedy, I just feel like that it's the spotlight is on me, but it's on my own terms.
Yes.
Like I am aware, and I made the decision to have the said spotlight on me, and I know how long it's on me for, and I know what to do with it. And like you said, I know what's happening before and after. While in some like many other like social situations, all these things are such an unknown that to me, I'm like, yeah, I get it because it's again, there is a spotlight, but it's under your rules, under your regulation, under whatever you want to see it as.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, I'm glad that it's a common feeling rather than a speak to someone qualified about that, because it's just it's like I say, genuinely. One of the things I love about stand-up is, like, last night I got to go to Red Raw at the Stand in Newcastle. And I always believe when people went on about this place, I just thought they were trying to sound like all, in with the cool kids when they raved about how amazing it was. But the moment I waddled into that basement in Newcastle city centre, you're like, okay, this is different to everywhere that I've ever done this. And there's just something about that weird magic of everyone before I'd gone on had done really well. Then I was on first in the middle section, and there were just these 3 coked up lads at the back that wouldn't shut up trying to heckle the MC. And to their credit, they obliterated these daft lads every time they tried to do anything. And I was just starting to get worried that it's like, I know that if people leave me alone to talk, I'll make that room laugh as loud as anyone. But if these idiots come at me like they have at him, my head won't want to engage in that, because it's like, no, I know what my funny words are, and I know I have only 10 minutes to say them. I can't be halfway through this story and stop that to call your mum a slag and then go back to this story. I just need you to let me have 10 minutes to be me. And as long as you give us that, I will give you one of the best parts of your night. And when it's just one of those nights where everything just hits that sweet spot, like you get into such a rhythm where the setup is getting applause breaks, let alone the actual punchline. I just got to sit there and smile at them laughing, which just made them laugh again. And there's moments where you've done like one gag and got 4 rounds of laughter out of it. And it's just this feeling of this is home. I've been out of the house 9 hours to do an unpaid 10 spot that's been a 240-mile round trip. Oh no, sorry, 480-mile round trip. And I would give anything to do that again tomorrow, because this feeling of just being in a proper iconic venue, on a proper iconic stage, in a room full of people that know what comedy is, and to have that level of love off them for no other reason than I turned up to be me and I'm really good at that. Yeah, that's probably the only drug apart from diazepam that I've been addicted to.
Oh God, but it's a beautiful drug. I mean, not the diazepam, but the
Yeah. No, that was. I didn't realise how strong it was when I initially agreed to take it. So when they told me, "Oh, you'll need to stop now," I was like, "Yeah, that's sound."
No way.
Yeah, because they had me on like 5 milligrams 3 times a day.
Wow.
So I was like genuinely unconscious at work. There was one day where a policewoman actually stopped me, because apparently I'd walked out into a main road and been missed by like a white van man by about 4 inches.
Oh, wow.
And so she thought I was genuinely on like drugs that you don't get over a boots counter. And she's trying to talk to me about this van. And I'm like, look, I'm really sorry, look, but I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, it missed you by inches. How did you not? And I just found myself like I had to unzip my coat so that she could see that I actually had my call centre lanyard on. And I just literally got all these like pills out of my pocket in their like metal strip things. And I'm like, look, this is the only thing I can assume it is. And she was just like, how are you out of the house on this lot? So, yeah.
Wow. Well, this is madness. Yeah. But I will, before just as we just like a last question. I'm so grateful for your time, and it's been such such amazing chat, and I feel like it's how do people basically, because I feel like it was such a brilliant conversation, and to have your basically to hear you talk about, I guess, some of the challenges that you've been facing, or some of the things that are happening. It was quite eye opening, and now you're more than welcome. I thank you for taking the time and for being so honest. But now I was wondering if people want to check out your work, see where you're at, and anything like that. How do people find you? And also, if you have anything coming up over the summer. I know we were talking at the beginning about how it's a bit harder at the moment to make plans. Until we're waiting for the new like driving license. Is it the driving license or the car that we're waiting for?
Yeah, it's strange because obviously on a driving lesson that I'm paying a stupid premium on, that you do so that somebody can teach you how to drive a non-standard car. We keep passing drive-throughs that I don't have where I live. And rather than just saying to my instructor, can I waste 6 minutes of my 2 hours so that I can finally have a bag of Popeye's chicken? I'm such a social coward that I'll just drive past it pining for a chicken type that I've never had yet. So it's such a weird setup. But I think, to be fair, probably on good old Facebook is probably the only place that you'll find any of the comedy stuff, and that's just Jonny Brook, the sat down stand up. Because Instagram is just basically, because I'm genuinely an actual granddad, my Insta is just nothing but pictures of the shortest icon this planet's ever known. So unless you're some kind of nonce, that's not an account that is of any interest to you. But the Facebook one, at least, that will have gigs that are upcoming and details of anything strange in life that comes along that I need to highlight to the world.
Well, I'm really hopeful to hear from you again soon, and I'm hopeful for people to, they will like check out your work, because I think that the way your view on so many things is wonderful, and the way you again, the way you I guess you carry yourself and everything that's happening, it's just brilliant. It's like I just found just listening to you was fascinating, and I appreciate you. And thank you. So
Thank you.
we'll talk so shortly, and take care for now. Bye.
Indeed, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Good, right? How was it? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? I hope so. It was definitely, um, great for me, and I hope great for Johnny. And I really enjoyed listening to this one when putting everything together. And look, check out his work. Is a brilliant comedian, and as you probably got a little, I guess, preview of what a lovely person he is. And look, I'll catch you later, in about a week's time. And in the meantime, I don't know, just check out everything else that I do, I guess. And I think starting off from the fall, and again, once I've managed to get through some things on a personal, level, I'm also gigging more now after the summer, so that's good. And just keep an eye out for it. And thank you. Bye bye. Oh, I almost forgot. Stay skillful. From me, Pickle, and Sarma. Goodbye.